Good morning, Catalyst. So glad to be with you this morning. Man, I feel like we ought to break out and dance or something, right? We've made it into 2021. 2020 has been the longest 10 years of our lives. Some of us are looking 10 years older. But 2020, we've officially shut the door on 2020. And we've hopefully swung wide open the door to 2021. Last week, if you watched, Adam kind of went back and talked about the things that happened positive, the things that we did as a church together in 2020. I know 2020 was a mess. It was a train wreck with everything that went on in 2020. But there was a lot of good things that happened. There was a lot of good ministry that happened. And to be honest with you, if we're all being honest about 2020, we had no idea. There's no manual on how to pastor or lead a church during a pandemic. And so we were trying to always weigh keeping everyone safe, but continuing to do ministry. And so we did the best we could, but you guys were awesome. And so we are grateful that you guys did so much in 2020, but we've officially shut the door on it. It's over. Now, I don't know what it is about people thinking magically 2021 is going to be great after the horrific 2020 we had. And the truth is, none of us know what 2021 have in store for us as a church, individuals, nothing like that. We don't have a clue what it's going to look like over the next year. But as I was thinking and studying and prayerfully considering what I would say to you this morning, I started thinking, where do we go from here? Right? We know where we've been in 2020. We probably, a lot of us were exactly 1 year ago looking into 2020 going, this could be a great year. And then just a few months in, man, the wheels came off, right? And so here we are a year later, maybe a little bit wiser, and we're standing before 2021. Where do we go from here? And I just got to thinking, what's the direction from here? How do we move forward as the church, as a church that's a part of the church here at Catalyst, as individuals that maybe men who are trying to lead their families in 2021? Where do we go from here? Here's what I noticed in 2020 is a lot of us spent 2020 worrying and afraid and concerned. And look, all those concerns were valid. Worries were valid, but I think if we're honest, we probably spent too much time worrying and maybe not enough time believing. Not enough time focused on Christ and what He's doing in our lives and where we're headed. It was probably the most distracting year for a believer. And in the midst of all that, of the virus, we had the political division and the racial and injustice and unrest in the country. And there was so much to distract us, and that we probably got caught up in the news cycles and social media and all that stuff. We all have opinions on it, I'm sure. But in 2021, as we're kind of looking ahead now, where do we go from here? And again, I'll say it, the truth is, none of us know what 2021 will look like. I'm optimistic. I believe that there are good things ahead, but there may be bad times ahead with that. So where do we go from here? And I got to looking back at the life of Moses and Joshua and that transition that happened. And so I just want to go to Scripture for a moment. Deuteronomy 31, verse 1 through 8. Deuteronomy 31, verse 1 through 8. Now, to understand this passage and what we're about to read, we need to go back a little bit, and you're probably familiar with the story. I'll just hit the highlights, but the people of Israel were in captivity in Egypt for 400 plus years. It's been a horrible 400 years for those people, and God hears the cries of his people as they begin to cry out to him, and he sends Moses to rescue his people from Pharaoh. And you know the story, the plagues that happened, miracles that took place, and finally Pharaoh lets them go, and Moses takes them from bondage to freedom. And not only to freedom, but they had a land that was promised to their ancestors. And so God took them straight from bondage in Egypt and was taking them to the land of Canaan. The land with milk and honey. There was so much there for them. And God already had this planned for them. And he had this appointed for them. And he takes them to the land. And if you remember the story, they send out spies to go spy out the land. Now they were just there to spy out the landscape and maybe get some intel on how they could take the land. But instead, they see that the land has so much to offer, and all they can focus on are the giants that are in the land. It was a land flowing with milk and honey, and it was the land promised to them. God had a promise. He was laying it in front of them. He's like, look, you spent all this time, and your parents and your grandparents spent time in Egypt as slaves, and now you can be free, and I have a place and a purpose for you. And they stand before it, this great land, and all they can see are the problems inside the land. They're missing the point that God is going to deliver the land to them. All they can focus on are the giants in the land. And so the spies report back, and most of the spies are they are losing their minds. They're going, there's no way we can go in that land. There's no way. And all of a sudden, that bad report spreads throughout Israel, and they are crying, and they are wailing, and they are wishing they had stayed in Egypt, and just this horrible wave of fear takes over the land of Israel. And they miss out on the land that God had for them. They miss out on the purpose that laid before them because they were afraid. They were not concerned that God had already taken care of the details ahead of them, that God was going to deliver the people to them. They weren't concerned with any of that. What they were concerned with was what the problems they saw in front of them. And I'm going to tell you something. I believe as we have moved through 2020, I wonder how many of us have been more focused on the problems that face us and the problems in front of us than the God who stands with us. I believe a lot of us, if we're honest. Because a lot of the problems that you faced, maybe you lost loved ones this year, maybe you lost a job or career. Maybe it's just like the rest of us, it's just grated on you with everything that's gone on. And maybe you've lost your focus. Maybe you've forgotten who walks with you because of what you've seen in front of you. Maybe fear was the theme of your 2020. And I think if we were honest, a lot of us, fear was the theme of our 2020. But I want faith to be the theme of our 2021. I want us to believe God for some things. And so in Deuteronomy 31, verse 1 through 8, now Moses, they've circled back, right? They're back in front of this land again. They're back ready to go into the land 40 years later. A whole generation has died off. Everybody that got lost in their fear, that got lost in their own heads, thinking that it was their ability that would allow them to go in the land, they've died off. And now here they stand again. And they're standing before the land again. And in Deuteronomy 31, 1 through 8, Moses is addressing the people. And he's letting them know he won't go in the land. God has already told Moses that he will not go in the land, that it's not for him, that someone else will lead them. So let's go to Deuteronomy 31, verse 1. When Moses had finished giving these instructions to all the people of Israel, he said, I am now 120 years old, and I am no longer able to lead you. The Lord has told me you will not cross the Jordan River. But the Lord your God himself will cross over ahead of you. He will destroy the nations living there, and you will take possession of their land. Joshua will lead you across the river, just as the Lord promised. The Lord will destroy the nations living in the land, just as he destroyed Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites. The Lord will hand over to you the people who live there, and you must deal with them as I have commanded you. Verse 6, so be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid and do not panic before them, for the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. So Moses tells the people to be strong and courageous, to not be afraid and to not panic before the problems they would face. For the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He reminds them not to be afraid, not only because God made a promise, but that God would be with them. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. Man, that's good news, isn't it? He will neither fail you nor abandon you. But then in verse 7, it says, then Moses called for Joshua. So he gets Joshua, and as Israel watched, he said to him, be strong and courageous, for you will lead these people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors he would give them. You are the one who will divide it among them as their grants of land. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. Do you think God was trying to give Joshua a message? In just these few verses, he has said to the people of Israel and said to Joshua face to face through Moses, be strong and courageous. And I love what it says, do not be afraid or discouraged. Don't be afraid or discouraged. And this is in Deuteronomy 31. We see that 2 times he's told to be strong and courageous. Now, can I tell you why God would tell him to be strong and courageous and not be afraid? Probably because Joshua was feeling afraid. If we could go back and we could see Joshua, I bet Joshua's heart was racing. He was now going to take over the duties. He had been an assistant this whole time. He had been in this place of helping Moses, the leader of the people of Israel. Now he's about to take the reins, and he is probably afraid. And remember, they're about to go into a land that they're going to have to fight for. Now, God is going to be with them, but they're going to encounter turmoil and problems and people that are bigger than them. They are going to face difficult times ahead. They're not just going to walk in and be like, hey, everybody out of our land, it's ours now. No, they're going to walk in and they're going to have to fight. And so God just reminds Joshua twice here in Deuteronomy 31 and the people of Israel, don't be afraid or discouraged. And I bet these words echoed for them as they went into battle, as they went into the land and started to see that there are battles ahead of them. Not just that they're going to possess a land that they've never really been to other than the spies going out. They just are probably going, man, we're going to encounter some stuff here. But I bet these words rang in their head. Don't be afraid or discouraged. Be strong and courageous because God is with you. This is Deuteronomy 31. If we flip over just a few pages, just a few chapters, Joshua chapter 1. Here we are again. This says in verse 1, after the death of Moses, the Lord's servant, the Lord spoke to Joshua. So now the Lord speaks to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant. That's who he's been all this time. But now God speaks to him and he said, Moses, my servant, is dead. He says to Joshua, he says, that time is over. That time's in the past. That time of him leading and that time of him taking the reins has passed. It's over. That door's closed. Now you're going to go into the land. He's dead. Moses is dead. Now it's your time. Now it's your time to lead. Therefore, the time has come for you to lead these people, the Israelites, across the Jordan River into the land I am giving them. I promise you what I promised Moses. Wherever you set foot, you will be on land I have given you. From the Negev wilderness in the south to the Lebanon mountains in the north, from the Euphrates River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west, including all the land of the Hittites. No one will be able to stand against you as long as you live. For I will be with you as I was with Moses. I will not fail you or abandon you. Now, here we are again. That's 3 times now that the message that God wanted Joshua to hear, he's heard it repetitively now. Verse 6, it says, be strong and courageous, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I swore to their ancestors I would give them. Be strong and very courageous. Back to back, God repeats himself. Be strong and courageous. Then he says, be strong and very courageous. Emphasis here, very courageous. Be careful to obey all the instructions Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything that you do. Study this book of instruction continually. Meditate on it day and night, so you will be sure to obey everything written in it. Only then will you prosper and succeed in all that you do. This is my command. Again, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Seems like God was trying to convey a message to Joshua. Be strong and courageous. I don't know what's coming in 2021. I really don't. I have no clue. And then none of us do unless God peers out and gives one of us a revelation of what is going to happen in 2021. We are just sitting here peering out into 2021 wondering what's next. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it'll look like. I don't know how it'll turn out. I don't know how rough it'll be or how good it'll be. I don't know. I don't know how hard things are for you right now. Maybe you're looking at some really difficult circumstances, some really difficult problems that 2020 has left you with. And some things are standing in front of you. And I just wanted to come this morning as we start off 2021, and I want to say to you, as you may be fearing some things in your life, things are different maybe for you. Maybe you've lost relationships. Maybe you've lost a job. Maybe you're just in a season of uncertainty and you're staring at this thing that's in front of you and you are afraid. Can I tell you something? Be strong and courageous. Because if you are with the Lord, if you are the Lord's, if you belong to Him, if you've ever brought Him into your life, if you've given your life over to Him, then God is with you. And that means God's with you even when you're afraid. See, I think sometimes we think about moments like this and we think that maybe Joshua and Moses were these mighty men, and they were amazing men of faith. But I can only think of one reason why God would, in just a few chapters, repeat Himself over and over and over to Joshua. Be strong and very courageous. Don't be afraid or discouraged. I would imagine He was telling him this because he was afraid and maybe feeling discouraged. And God was just reminding him that, yeah, there's some things in front of you that'll probably scare you, but I am with you. The problem is the things that stand in front of us sometimes make us forget about the God who stands with us. And I just wanted to come this morning and take this opportunity as we open up the doors to 2021 and say, our God is with us. Yes, there's some things that stand in front of us. Yes, there's some things that we may be afraid of that stand in front of us. But we stand and we will be courageous. And we'll be strong. Not because we're strong or courageous, but because we know who stands with us. See, it's a whole new ball game when you know who stands with you. You absolutely know who stands with you. Yeah, it's crazy. And yes, there are things that we are going to encounter in 2021 that will probably be scary again. They may stir up some of that fear in us. But man, can we just take these words from Deuteronomy and from Joshua that echo down through the years and come into our lives and say, be strong and very courageous. Our God will not fail us, and our God is with us. And I believe there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to minister in 2021. I believe there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to show Jesus to the world, to our world around us, to our community. And I don't want us cowering in fear. I want us standing in faith. Though we may be afraid, though we may be concerned, though we may have thoughts that things are not going our way, that would not overtake our faith. I think we've seen some people lose their faith this year. I think that's the most tragic thing that's happened. I've talked to people who feel like they're losing their faith. Listen, I know some things stand in front of us, but it pales in comparison to the God that stands with us. May you be encouraged this morning to be strong and very courageous because of who stands with you. Because of who stands with us as a church. The God of heaven is with us. And the God of heaven is calling us to be His hands and feet. I'm going to close with this. So my daughter, my 8-year-old, got a scooter, a Razor scooter for Christmas that Santa brought. And it's funny, because she looked at it in total fear. It's a scooter without training wheels. She still hadn't rode a bike without training wheels. And I think she looked at it kind of just with fear, right? Like she's just looking at it going, I don't think I can do this. And so she opened all her presents and all that stuff that morning. And then I asked her if she wanted to go ride it. And I made sure I told her, I said, listen, Dad will hold on to the back. I won't let you go. I will hold on back there and you can ride this thing. I will not let you go. I promise I'll hold on. It has a little handle on the back. And man, all of a sudden, she was fearless. It's like she was afraid, and then all of a sudden she was fearless. Man, she was taking that thing, and we were off to the races. And I've had COVID, for a couple of weeks there. Haven't seen a lot of you guys in a while because of that. And so I was running up and down the road chasing this scooter. My back was hurting. I was tired quickly. I was winded quickly. But man, all of a sudden, she was just the most courageous kid around. And it wasn't because she all of a sudden knew how to ride a scooter. It was because she knew her father had her. And I just wonder who needed to hear that this morning. That I don't know what's going on and all the turmoil that you may be facing. But I just came to remind you that your Father has you. We don't have to be strong and courageous because we know exactly what we're doing or we have all the faith in our abilities. Matter of fact, it would be the opposite. We'll be strong and courageous because our Father has us. And the things He's called us to do, He'll enable us to do it. So let's pray this morning. Lord, thank you for this time together as we enter 2021 and we enter with hope. We enter looking ahead that there are going to be opportunities for us to minister, to be your hands and feet down here. A lot of us are facing some really hard, difficult situations. But God, I just pray that this morning that this word would resonate in our spirits, that you are with us and you are for us. And if you are for us, who can be against us? Lord, this morning we come to you and we probably collectively could ask for forgiveness for being afraid of certain things in 2020. Because we've let things stir up the fear in us. We've let things overwhelm us. We've let situations dictate what we believe instead of letting you dictate what we believe. And so as we enter 2021, God, let us come before you humbly this morning and say, God, from here on out this year, from here on out, no matter what's going to happen, we are in the hands of the Father. And God, we want to live strong and courageous, knowing who is in control and knowing who is standing with us, so that we are not afraid of what's in front of us, and that we would be fearless this year. Fearlessly loving our neighbors, fearlessly loving our families, instead of being dictated by fear. We would stand in the face of it and be strong and very courageous. We love you this morning. I pray for those that may be hurting, those that may be struggling, that your hand would touch them this morning, that you would encourage them, that you would strengthen them. Be with us as a church as we enter this new year. We love you. We thank you for what you're doing. In Jesus' name, amen. Love you guys. Thanks for letting me share this morning. Hope you got something from this. Hope you were encouraged this morning. I believe God's got some good stuff in store for 2021. See you next time. Love you guys.